You know that moment when someone looks you dead in the eye and tells you exactly where you don't belong. I'm Ryan, and I'm about to tell you about the night my sister-in-law tried to humiliate me in front of 50 people, only to end up destroying her own life instead. This is the story of how one dinner party, one seating chart, and one $22,000 bill changed everything. Let me paint you a picture. It's Eleanor's 70th birthday party. Eleanor. That's my mother-in-law, and honestly, she's the only person in my wife's family who ever made me feel like I actually belonged. I'm standing in this upscale restaurant, the kind of place where the appetizers cost more than most people's grocery budget, holding a glass of bourbon and watching 50 guests mingle around tables I personally arranged. Tables I paid for, at a party I organized from scratch. But none of that mattered to Melissa. Melissa, my sister-in-law, had been circling me all night like a shark smelling blood in the water. Designer dress, perfectly styled hair, that fake smile that never quite reached her eyes. She had this way of making every room feel like her personal kingdom, and I was just some peasant who'd wandered in by mistake. The thing about Melissa is embarrassing. She never forgave me for one simple fact. Eleanor actually liked me, not just tolerated me. Not just put up with me because I was married to her daughter Jenna. She genuinely enjoyed having me around. And that ate at Melissa like acid. You see, Melissa had spent 38 years being the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, the one who always got her way. And then I showed up, this guy from a middle-class family who worked construction, who didn't have a trust fund or connections or any of the things Melissa thought mattered. But Eleanor, she didn't care about any of that. She cared that I made her daughter happy. She cared that I showed up to family dinners without being asked. She cared that I remembered her birthday, that I asked about her garden, that I treated her like the incredible woman she was, instead of just some obligation. And Melissa, God. Melissa hated that so much it was physically painful to watch. So there I am, enjoying what I thought was going to be a perfect evening, when I see her approaching. That predatory stride, that look in her eyes that said she'd been planning this moment all night. Ryan, she says, that fake sweetness dripping from her voice like poisoned honey. We need to talk. I take a sip of my bourbon, already knowing this isn't going to end well. Melissa, I don't think we do. Oh, but we do. She places this perfectly manicured hand on my arm, like she's about to deliver devastating news with the utmost care. It's about the seating arrangements, tiny change. And that's when she drops it. Table 14, the table in the back, by the bathrooms, where the noise from the kitchen drowns out conversation and the smell of industrial disinfectant mingles with the aroma of overpriced food. It just makes more sense, she says, with that little laugh that makes my skin crawl. It's still a great seat. I set my drink down, feeling this cold rage building in my chest. Melissa, I organized this party. I paid for this party. And you're telling me I don't get to sit at the table with my own wife? She tilts her head, looking so pleased with herself it's almost comical. Ryan, it's just, well, it's a family table. Family table. Let me tell you something about those two words. They hit me like a physical blow. Because what she was really saying, what she was making crystal clear to everyone within earshot, was that I wasn't family. That after 5 years of marriage to Jenna, after 5 years of showing up to every birthday and holiday and crisis, I was still just some outsider who didn't belong. I'm literally married to Jenna, I say, my voice barely controlled. Exactly, she replies, as if that somehow proves her point. Jenna is family. You're here. That's when I knew. This wasn't about seating arrangements. This wasn't about logistics or space or any of the practical concerns she was pretending to have. This was about power. This was about Melissa reminding me, and everyone else, that in her version of this family I would always be just a guest. And that's when I made the decision that would change everything. Before I could respond to her little power play, a waiter appears beside me. Young guy, probably working his way through college, looking nervous as hell. Mr. Keeling, he says. Just confirming the additional orders. Truffle risotto, caviar tasting, the vintage Dom Perignon. Mrs. Melissa said you approved them. I turned my head so slowly, I swear I can hear my own neck crack. I did what? Melissa takes a sip of her champagne, completely unbothered. Oh, relax, Ryan. It's a party. You wouldn't want Eleanor to feel restricted, would you? And there it was. The final insult. Not only was she relegating me to the kiddie table, she was also running up my bill with the most expensive items on the menu. Without asking. Without even pretending to care what I thought. This wasn't about Eleanor having a good time. This was about Melissa proving that she could do whatever she wanted, spend whatever she wanted. Because in her mind, I was just there to pay for it all. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to my banking app, and did something that felt both terrifying and liberating. I opened the restaurant tab and removed all spending limits. You know what? I said, looking her dead in the eyes. You're absolutely right. Her smirk widened. Finally, you're seeing reason. Go crazy, Melissa. I patted her on the shoulder, feeling this strange calm settle over me. Really, order whatever you want. She narrowed her eyes, sensing something but not quite sure what. What are you playing at? I finished my drink and set the glass down with a quiet clink. Nothing. And then I walked away. I found Jenna and Eleanor near the head table, the table I was supposed to be sitting at, laughing about something Eleanor was saying. The moment Eleanor saw me, her face lit up like Christmas morning. Ryan, darling. She reached for my hand, squeezing it with genuine warmth. Come here. I was just telling Jenna how perfect everything is tonight. You really outdid yourself. And that's when it hit me. The difference between Eleanor and Melissa wasn't just personality. It was character. Eleanor saw me. She appreciated me. She valued what I brought to this family. While Melissa saw me as nothing more than a wallet with legs. Anything for you, Eleanor? I said, meaning every word. Jenna turned toward me. Joel, sure. Her brows knitting together with concern. Hey, where have you been? You look like... He's been dealing with Melissa, Eleanor finished, rolling her eyes with the kind of exasperation that comes from decades of dealing with someone's nonsense. Jenna groaned. What did she do this time? I forced a smile. Nothing I can't handle. But Eleanor, God bless her, she wasn't buying it. I swear that girl thrives on making everyone miserable. You know, she actually tried to tell me I should sit at the second table because, and I quote, the young generation should take the spotlight. Jenna's jaw dropped. She what? Yeah, I said with a low chuckle. Well, apparently I'm sitting at table 14, near the bathrooms. The look on Jenna's face, it was like watching someone realize their sister was capable of cruelty they'd never imagined. Her expression darkened, and for a moment I thought she might march over there and tear Melissa apart with her bare hands. Oh no, she said, already moving toward where Melissa was holding court near the bar. Don't worry about it, I said, catching her arm gently. Melissa thinks she's running the show. Let's see how she handles it when the curtain falls. And right on cue, as if the universe itself was setting up the perfect moment, Melissa's voice rang out over the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, can I have your attention, please? I turned to see her standing near the stage, one hand wrapped around a champagne flute, the other gesturing grandly. The woman had an uncanny ability to command a room. But tonight she was about to choke on her own spotlight. I just want to take a moment, she continued, smiling like she hadn't just spent the last hour treating me like garbage, to say how grateful we all are for our wonderful mother, Eleanor. Polite applause followed. I clapped along, watching her like a predator watches its prey. She's the heart and soul of this family, Melissa went on, her voice dripping with false sincerity. And we are so blessed to celebrate her tonight. Then she turned slightly, and that smirk widened. And of course, none of this would have been possible without my dear sister Jenna. She motioned toward my wife, completely skipping over me. Jenna worked so hard to make sure this night was perfect. A murmur rippled through the crowd. A few people glanced in my direction. Eleanor sat up straighter, her jaw tightening. "Melissa," she said, her tone sharp as a blade. "Ryan planned and paid for this entire event. But Melissa, she pretended not to hear. And of course, we all chipped in a little here and there to make this magical." I smiled to myself. Oh, this was going to be fun. That's when the waiter from earlier stepped onto the stage, carrying a sleek black folder. He tapped Melissa on the shoulder, leaning in to whisper something that made her frown. "What?" she said, loud enough for half the room to hear. The waiter gestured toward me. "The bill, ma'am. Mr. Keeling instructed us to bring it directly to the person who placed the additional orders." Melissa's smile twitched. "Excuse me?" The waiter, bless his professional heart, held out the folder with the kind of polite determination that comes from years of dealing with difficult customers. The total, including the truffle risotto, caviar, and vintage champagne, comes to $22,489. The gasp that rippled through the crowd was audible. Someone dropped a fork. The clatter echoed in the sudden silence like a gunshot. Melissa's face went pale, then red, then pale again. That's impossible." The waiter remained expressionless. "Professional? Ein? Unmoved. Would you like to put it all on one card, or split the payment?" I crossed my arms, tilting my head with the kind of calm that comes from watching karma finally show up to work. "Yeah, Melissa, how would you like to pay?" Her head snapped toward me. "No." Nostrils flaring like an angry bull. "You're unbelievable." "Ah," I said, raising a finger with mock concern. "Language. Family event, remember?" Eleanor's eyes darted between us, confusion and dawning realization warring on her face. "Ryan, what's going on?" I gave her an easy smile, the kind you give when you're about to reveal a magic trick. Melissa decided to treat herself tonight, ordered all the most expensive dishes and drinks without asking me. I turned back to my sister-in-law, my voice smooth as silk. And since she wanted to act like she's in charge, I figured she'd also want to handle the bill. Melissa's hands were shaking now. Actual tremors. "I'm not paying that. This is your event." I shrugged, feeling lighter than I had in years. "Well, you did tell me to relax and let the family enjoy themselves, so I did." The waiter cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable but determined to do his job. "Ma'am, if you can't pay, we'll have to involve management. And if the bill remains unpaid, we'll need to..." Before he could finish, a deep voice interrupted from across the room. "What is going on here?" Everyone turned. Standing near the entrance, looking absolutely furious, was David, Melissa's ex-husband. The man she'd spent the last 3 years trash-talking to anyone who'd listen. Melissa's entire body went rigid. "What are you doing here?" David strode toward the stage, his eyes locked onto her like a heat-seeking missile. "My friend owns this venue. He called me when a certain someone started running up a massive tab with no visible way to pay." The room fell into stunned silence. You could have heard a pin drop. Melissa's hands curled into fists. "I don't have time for this, David." He let out a sharp laugh, the kind that cuts through pretense like a hot knife through butter. "No, you never had time for anything but yourself." He turned to Eleanor, his expression softening slightly. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think everyone here deserves to know exactly what kind of person Melissa is." Melissa's jaw clenched so hard I thought she might crack a tooth. "Don't you dare." But David was done being silenced. Done being the villain in her version of events. Melissa has spent years living off other people's money. Mine, her parents, anyone who'd let her. She doesn't contribute, she takes. And the second someone stops letting her leech off them, she turns nasty. The guests started murmuring, exchanging awkward glances, suddenly seeing the evening's events in a very different light. "The worst part," David continued, his voice carrying across the silent room. "She spent our entire marriage acting like she was above me, above everyone, and now she's sitting here trying to humiliate Ryan while making him pay for everything." He scoffed. "Sounds about right." Melissa looked murderous. "You don't know what you're talking about." David smirked. "Don't I?" And then, as if the universe was determined to make this moment as cinematic as possible, Security walked in. Two guards in black suits approached the stage, their expressions neutral but their presence unmistakable. "Excuse me, ma'am," one of them said to Melissa. "We've been informed there's an issue with the bill." Melissa let out a strangled noise, somewhere between a laugh and a sob. "This is a mistake." The guards didn't care about her protests. They'd seen this movie before. "Would you like to handle this discreetly, or should we call the authorities?" Silence. Cold, perfect, humiliating silence. Melissa looked around, desperate for someone to step in. But no one did. Not even Eleanor. Not even Jenna. And especially not me. I just stood there, watching as the self-proclaimed queen of the family finally fell from her throne. And then, as if this night couldn't get any more surreal, the front doors burst open. Two uniformed police officers walked in, scanning the room like they were looking for a suspect. The murmur of voices grew louder. Guests shifted uncomfortably. Some were already pulling out their phones. This wasn't just some family squabble anymore. This was about to go viral. "Who's in charge here?" one of the officers asked. The venue manager, a sharply dressed woman with a clipboard, stepped forward. "That would be Mr. Keeling." She gestured toward me. The officer nodded and turned to me. "Sir, we received a report about an unpaid balance. Normally we wouldn't step in so quickly, but given the amount..." He gave Melissa a long, assessing look. And the nature of the situation, the establishment requested immediate action. Melissa's breath hitched. You called the police?" I shrugged, feeling strangely calm. I didn't. But apparently when someone racks up a bill this high and refuses to pay, the venue has policies. David crossed his arms, smirking. "Wow, Melissa, you really outdid yourself this time." She spun toward him, eyes blazing. "Enough, David. You have no right to be here." He laughed, shaking his head. "Oh, I have every right to be here. I've waited years to see you finally get what you deserve." The officer interrupted, pulling out his notepad. "Ma'am, either you settle this bill now, or we'll have to bring you in for fraud." The room collectively gasped. Someone's champagne glass slipped from their fingers, shattering on the marble floor. "Fraud?" Melissa staggered back a step. "It's a dinner bill, not a crime." The officer's expression didn't change. "Ordering high-end items under someone else's name without their consent. That's called defrauding an establishment, ma'am." And that's when Melissa did something I'd never seen before. She turned to Eleanor, panic creeping into her voice like ice water. "Mom, you're really going to let them do this to me?" Eleanor exhaled slowly, adjusting the bracelet on her wrist with deliberate calm. "Melissa, you did this to yourself." The words hit like a physical blow. Melissa's entire body tensed. "I am your daughter." Eleanor's expression didn't change. "And Ryan is my son-in-law, yet you treated him like a servant while draining his money." She shook her head, and I could see decades of disappointment in that gesture. "I've spent too many years excusing your behavior, Melissa, but this..." She gestured around the room. "This is the last straw." Melissa's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. And then the worst thing possible happened to her. Jenna spoke. "I think you should go, Melissa." 5 simple words. But they carried the weight of a lifetime of sisterly loyalty, now shattered beyond repair. Melissa let out a choked laugh. "Are you serious? You're siding with him over me?" Jenna's jaw tightened, and when she spoke, her voice was steady as stone. "He's my husband, and more importantly, he's a better person than you've ever been." Just like that, Melissa's entire world cracked. I could see it in her eyes, the realization that she had pushed too far, that she had finally burned the one bridge she thought would always be there. She turned back to me. Now, her voice barely a whisper. "You set me up." I smiled, feeling something like peace settle over me. "No, Melissa, you did that all by yourself." The officer took a step closer. "Ma'am, final chance. Are you paying this bill, or are we escorting you out?" Melissa's lip trembled. For the first time in her miserable, self-absorbed life, she had no clever response. No smug comeback, just raw, humiliated silence. And then she did the only thing left to do. She ran. Her heels clicked against the marble floors as she bolted toward the exit, shoving past stunned guests. A few people actually laughed. Someone took a picture. The flash lit up her face as she pushed through the doors, and then she was gone. David just shook his head. Pathetic. The officers exchanged looks. Do we chase her? The manager sighed. No need. We have all her information on file. And just like that, it was over. The storm had passed. Melissa was gone. And for the first time in years, I finally felt like I belonged. But the story, the real story, was just beginning. The next morning, the fallout officially began. It started with the phone calls. Melissa tried calling Eleanor 7 times. Then Jenna. Then, God help me, Nahar. She even tried calling me. No one answered. Then came the texts. You've ruined my life. You think you're so smart? You just turned the whole family against me. I hope you're happy. I was, but it got so much worse for her. By noon, social media was already eating her alive. Someone had recorded the entire scene. The moment the police showed up, the bill being presented, the way Melissa turned tail and ran like a guilty criminal. By afternoon, it was everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Rich lady tries to dine and dash at her own mother's birthday party. Woman humiliated after getting caught in $22,000 restaurant scam. When you think you're the main character, but karma has other plans. It was brutal. And, honestly, I loved every second of it. By dinner time, the final nail in Melissa's coffin dropped. David texted Jenna. She got fired. I actually laughed out loud. Wait, what? Jenna stared at her phone in shock. David says someone at her company saw the video. They called her in this morning and basically told her she was a PR nightmare. Eleanor just sipped her tea. Good. And that's when I realized Melissa wasn't just embarrassed. She wasn't just humiliated. Her whole life was unraveling. No job, no support, and for the first time, no family left to bail her out. She had no one to blame but herself. 3 days later, she showed up at my house. The doorbell rang at exactly 7:42 p.m. I already knew it was her before I checked the camera feed. Jenna stood beside me. Arms crossed. Are we seriously doing this? I smirked. Might as well. Let's see how desperate she really is. I opened the door, and there she was. Melissa Dot. But not the polished, perfectly put-together version I was used to. Her hair was unbrushed, her makeup smudged, her eyes red like she'd been crying for hours. She didn't wait for an invitation. She shoved past me, storming into the living room like she still owned every room she walked into. What did you do to me? She spat, her voice shaking with rage and desperation. I shut the door slowly, leaning against it. I don't know, Melissa. What did you do to yourself? She whirled around, eyes blazing. You humiliated me. You set me up like some criminal. Jenna let out a cold laugh. Melissa, you scammed a restaurant out of $22,000. What'd you think would happen? Melissa turned to her sister, looking genuinely betrayed. Oh, don't act like you're innocent in this. You turned on me too. Jenna's expression hardened. No. I just finally saw you for who you really are. Melissa scoffed, but there was a tremble in her hands. You think this is funny, don't you? Watching me lose everything? I tilted my head, studying her like a fascinating specimen. You mean the job you got by pretending to be someone you're not? The respect you never actually earned? The family you treated like servants? She swallowed hard, looking away. I made a mistake, okay? You don't have to keep rubbing it in. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Melissa, you spent years making me feel like I wasn't part of this family. You humiliated me every chance you got. And now that you're the one being humiliated, you want mercy. Her lip trembled. I need time to fix this. Jenna spoke first. Fix what, Melissa? Your reputation? Your job? Or the fact that no one trusts you anymore? Melissa flinched. For the first time ever, she had no comeback. No snide remark. No clever insult. Just silence. And then, finally, the truth slipped out. I don't know who I am without this family. Jenna exhaled sharply, shaking her head. Melissa, that's the problem. You spent your whole life treating people like chess pieces instead of actual family. Melissa clenched her jaw. So that's it? I make one mistake and you just throw me away. I gave her a long look. This wasn't one mistake, Melissa. This was years of you treating everyone like garbage. She let out a choked breath. I just thought, no matter what happened, I'd still have my family. Jenna's voice was soft but firm. You did, and you lost us. Melissa's shoulders sank. For the first time, she looked small, like she finally understood that she had pushed too far. She took a shaky breath, looking at Jenna. What do I do now? Jenna's face was unreadable. Then she glanced at me. That's not our problem anymore. Melissa's breath hitched. She stared at her sister, at me. Mwash. Then, without another word, she turned and walked out the door. And just like that, Melissa was gone from our lives. A lot changed after that night. Jenna and I grew closer. Without Melissa constantly stirring the pot, it felt like we could breathe again. We could enjoy family dinners without walking on eggshells. We could celebrate holidays without wondering what drama was about to unfold. Eleanor stopped making excuses for her daughter. She still loved Melissa, of course she did. But she no longer bent over backwards to fix her messes. As for Melissa, she tried to rebuild. She got a new job, but it wasn't glamorous. No power, no control, just work. She never reached out. Not to me, not to Jenna, not even to Eleanor. And honestly, that was fine. Because if there's one thing I learned through all of this, family isn't about blood. It's about who actually respects you. It's about who shows up when it matters. It's about who treats you like you belong, not like some outsider who's lucky to be tolerated. Melissa was never my family. She just thought she was the main character in a story that didn't belong to her. But here's the thing about being the main character. Sometimes the story doesn't end the way you think it will. Sometimes the person you've been treating like background noise turns out to be the one holding all the cards. Sometimes the family table you're so desperate to control becomes the place where you lose everything. And sometimes justice doesn't come from the courts or the law or some grand gesture of revenge. Sometimes justice comes from a $22,000 dinner bill and the simple realization that actions have consequences. Today, as I write this, Jenna and I are planning Eleanor's 71st birthday party. It's going to be smaller this time, more intimate. Just the people who actually matter. There's no Melissa on the guest list. No drama. No power plays. No seating charts designed to put anyone in their place. Just family. Real family. The kind that's built on love and respect, not blood and obligation. And you know what? For the first time in years, I'm actually looking forward to it. Because this time, I know exactly where I belong. At the head table, right where I've always belonged. With the people who chose to love me. Not in neither. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. That's what real family looks like. And Melissa, wherever she is, I hope she figures that out someday. But that's her story to write. This one is mine. And it has a happy ending. The end.